Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. And on today's topic, I will be talking about the impact of growing up in a emotional dysfunctional household. I've mentioned this in a couple of my videos that I was raised in an African household. I am Senegalese and Guinea-Bissau. I don't know if you guys know, but that's on the west coast of Africa, literally the coast of Africa. Literally the west coast of Africa, like the coast, and that is where I am originally from. Obviously, I was born in Europe, and then I was raised in the States, and then I came back to Europe, and it is important to understand that it took a lot for me to get as emotionally in tune as I was. I will give a lot of props to my eldest brother and my mom. It is important to know that a lot of the time when you're growing up in an emotionally dysfunctional household, it is literally generational trauma. Like that's it. That's what it is. It's your parents growing up with the example that was set by your great-grandparents, that was set by their great-grandparents. It's just boom, 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 boom. It's just a big snowball effect that unfortunately causes for you to live in this type of dynamic in your home. And so I am the only girl out of 6 boys and 2 adoptive brothers that are my second-hand cousin because my grandfather married 2 wives. This is very complex. So follow me, camera. Follow me. Okay. And within that, my mom wanted a girl very bad. I am the 5th child. And so I have a big time gap between my brother, my oldest brother right next to me, and me. And there's stories being told, like my mom did say that she had to calm down in terms of like, you know, the whole emotional irregularity that she had. I'm so sorry guys, I'm butchering the fuck out these words. That she had. And I got to grow up in a more sane like home compared to my brothers, but I see it every day. Now that we are, you know, older, I see the difference between them and I. And to say the least, one of my biggest lessons is knowing that my mom tried to soften up in the sense of like she didn't want me to have this like hard exterior or be like a very like closed off person or tomboyish. That was her nightmare. She did not want me to be a tomboy at all. It didn't end up happening, so God bless. But my older brother also reinforced the whole physical touch with me, like the whole hugs, the kisses and and things like that, like, you know, the reassurance, the making it okay to cry and stuff. I will say the household definitely softened up after I was born because of the fact that my mom was big on, I don't want my daughter to grow up having such a hard exterior. But how do I mean it? I still grew up with a dad that was emotionally unavailable and a mom that was emotionally unstable. Neither of these emotions are their fault, okay? It did take a while for me to say that because I had to understand how their parents raised them and hear and sit through my mom's childhood story and sit through my dad's childhood story to understand that they were robbed of these things. So, you know, my dad being emotionally unavailable does not mean that he's not an active dad. My dad is very active and still to this day I talk to him on a regular basis. But when he is presented with emotions, he just doesn't know how to elaborate them. He doesn't know what to do. He just looks at me and he's like, why are you crying? Like, basically, tee up. Like, tee up. And my mom is a lot more open to emotion, but she is emotionally unstable because no one has ever catered to her emotional state. So she doesn't know how to place her emotions in the right brackets, in the right categories. And they tend to overflow. They boom, they explode basically because she just doesn't know where to put them. Growing up with that made me as a child, it made me be the emotional balance for every and anything. Because before I was born, that whole dynamic was inflicted on men, on boys in our household. So I grew up with brothers that were not very comfortable with anything that was emotionally like based basically. And it's something that they had to get used to when I was born, but it's not something that, they grew up talking about their feelings, or giving out hugs, or saying I love you and things like that, which was the complete opposite for me. Like, I had that because my mom wanted to reinforce that, and even at a certain age it stopped, because if for her it was, something that she wasn't by default used to doing. I always tell people, I do think that it's still a mystery as to why I am so physically in tuned, or why I'm so emotionally in tune, but that's is what actually happens when you are between two extremes of the bracket of emotional. You just become this, like the glue. You become the person that walks into a room and you know how to read people, because you were raised with a mom that her slight movement in facial structure, or like emotion or energy that she radiated off, could immediately turn into an explosive episode, just like it could turn into a rant, just like it could just be anything under the sun. So it's like you had to constantly be able to read what was going to happen before it happened. And now I step into these rooms and I'm able to completely read emotionally what's happening around me. Like, if the emotion or just the energy, if there's a slight shift in the delivery in which you say a certain word, I know something is wrong, because I grew up having to do it all the time. Having somebody that's emotionally unavailable made me feel like I know what it feels like not to be heard. I know this feeling of like communicating to someone and having someone not understand why it is that you're reacting like that, and it doesn't feel good. So then you also teach yourself to be that for other people. I would like to think that with the knowledge that I had, thanks to the little that my mom and my elder brother kind of installed in me, and also the things that I had to slowly and surely learn how to do as a kid, that you pick up on in terms of like, protection mechanism and stuff like that, were things that I ended up instilling in my little brothers, where it's like I didn't have the safe space to be like, something is making me visually upset, please, like I would like to communicate how this feels. And a lot of the time when I got older, it kind of got shut down, like, oh, just kind of move past it, like, tee up, like, this is not a time right now for emotion, just like, come on, like, just get out of there. But I think as a big sister, my main goal was to create this safe space for my little brother. So the last two, to really have this thing where it's like they could communicate however they feel, and they will never ever 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 feel like they're being judged for how something is making them feel. You are no less of a man because you're communicating to me that this person made you angry. The only thing that makes you righteous is how you handle the situation after you have expressed how you felt. How you feel is how you feel. I cannot take that away from you. But because of the parents that we grew up with, it was very hard, to unlock that with my brothers. And it took me growing up and understanding, this is again, generational things, that it's like I never once told people like, oh, my brothers, they don't love me and they don't show me love. They each of them have their own way of showing me how much I mean to them. That is wholeheartedly communicated. But again, that comes from growing up in an emotionally unstable part of my household, where it's like you start picking up on things. I remember something that I had mentioned to a friend of mine when I was describing how my first relationship went. And I had told her that in my first relationship, I never needed my partner to tell me anything, because I was able to read his body language to a point that everything I wanted him to say out loud, I was able to read it off of him. It's not healthy, by the way. I just would like to preference that. It is important for your partner to communicate that. But it could be things like, oh, he never tells me I'm pretty. But it's like, I could read on your body language that you found me attractive, It was small things like that. Like, I could tell that you're agitated. Let me go ahead and do something that I know is going to make you feel better without you having to communicate that, something is wrong. Hence why I don't kind of I'll talk about this in another video about how the importance of studying your partner, but I think it is important to note that when you are raising a household like that, you start picking up on things like this, like this, like this, because patterns are quickly something that you get the hang of. Oh, okay, I see that you do this all the time and you do this all the time. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. And you start piecing it together and it just starts flowing and it starts flowing. There's pros and cons, but I think what differentiates a person that grew up in an emotional dysfunctional household is how you choose to heal from it. If you are the type of person, and I've met people like this, that grew up in an emotional dysfunctional household, and the first thing you do is fall victim to the things that you hate because you are unable to forgive or recognize where they come from, you will exactly end up in the whole victim. That did not make sense. You will end up in the victim mindset that you are so desperately trying to break out of. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy, to be in a victim mindset all the time, constantly blaming people for things that didn't amount. It is not their fault anymore. You are grown. We have a life expectancy of 80 years, please. You cannot tell me that you are still stuck on what happened in the first 10 years of your teenage years and you are unable to shift your perspective. There are things that people go through, and I understand some things might take more time to heal from, but you staying in that victim mindset is going to get you killed. Okay? This video is long enough, so I am going to cut it short here. But if you guys want to hear more about this topic, please, by all means, comment it down below. Thank you guys so much for staying to the end of this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And share this video to someone that you feel like can relate to this. And if that person is you, send it to yourself, honey. Okay? Like I say, guys, please leave your comments down below. I love hearing what you guys have to say. I read every single comment wholeheartedly. Like, I'm not even kidding. And I literally discuss them amongst friends. So please feel free to drop your comments down below. I would love to read them. And until the next video, my loves, mwah, bye.